here on the end, and Red Atkins at 92.7. Now, I told you we had some guests coming in, and well, they finally showed up. We were watching them as they just drifted in, and sort of like transients do. They just kind of just float in, you know, and no one talks to them for a while. Then all of a sudden they come up with some knowledgeable stuff, and you're like, wow, these guys must know something. And we do have some guests this year. I'll give them a good introduction because subject matter-wise, a little bit interesting. That's right. Suspenseful. Hair-raising. True stories. All coming your way. That's right. It's the guys who sell diapers on the road. No, I'm just kidding. Anyways, I want to give a big shout out to our guest today from Bigfoot Paranormal. I believe they're still. You guys still using it?
Bigfoot's Pad.
Bigfoot's Pad. That's what it was. Paranormal research. That's what it was. I remember that's what it was. You guys have changed it a little bit, though, haven't you? You changed it up a little.
We used to have 4 people. Now we're down to 3.
You're down to 3. Who was the 4th one? Oh, there was a 4th one.
Yeah, we had a 4th guy with us, but he kind of moved away to California, so then we don't really talk to him a whole lot anymore.
Because he moved to California.
Well, he moved to California, and then he kind of turned into like a hermit, I guess you could say. Now we don't really hear from him anymore.
Well, considering the stories these guys are going to tell us, I can see why someone would want to do that, you know?
Right.
Okay, so introduce yourselves so the listening audience knows who we're talking to.
My name's Jeremy Metter, and of course we are Bigfoot's Pad from Las Vegas, Nevada, and we came to Ely. Well, we've been going to Ely, I guess you should say, since about 2008, investigating a series of UFO events that actually happened in the 1950s and 60s.
Now, there's people out there right now going, wait a minute, UFOs. Oh, come on!
Well, we collect stories about UFO sightings in general, but the majority of the research that we're doing involves 2 UFO crashes that supposedly happened. One was in the 1950s out near Ruth, and the other one actually happened outside of Ely, close to McGill, in the 1960s.
Now, this is not something just hearsay. You can actually go on the internet and punch in Ely crash, and all of a sudden it's just all kinds of different hits on it, right?
Yes.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, it is. And a lot of people don't realize. People lived here all their lives. You know, some of them just don't know that something like that would actually even be considered as happy in this area.
Yeah. Do you guys want to introduce yourselves real quick?
Yeah, that would be good too. I got this real big guy. He's all bearded. I'm kind of nervous, you know. I think his name is Ashim.
He's from Arabia.
No.
Shut up, you don't know what you're talking about.
All right, hi, my name is Nicholas Poirier. I'm an investigator with Bigfoots Pad Paranormal.
And I'm Tim. I'm also a researcher with Bigfoots Pad Paranormal. I'm Jeremy's older brother.
And yes, they do look alike. All right, just
Yes.
So everybody knows. So now, tell me how long you guys, because we had you up here on the air a couple years ago, when you guys were up here last time doing some research and stuff.
Yeah.
So now tell me how long you guys have been doing this, so people know. I mean, these aren't just guys that showed up off some human bus, you know. Like, hey, man.
Yeah. Right.
Well, we were in Denver and we got some shrooms, you know.
Yeah. Well, our group, we've been around as a group since 2003. We've been investigating specifically the Ely case since 2008, but we also do like ghost hunting, we do like lake monster things, Bigfoot, like all that. We just recently celebrated our 100th investigation, where we actually went out to, it's called Santa Claus, Arizona. It's out by Kingman.
Heard of it, yeah.
We actually celebrate our 100th investigation. Now I think we're up to like 110 or something like that. But we're really deep into it. We try to stay busy. We go out probably, 4 or 5 times a month, I would say.
Yeah, we try to go out at least every other week.
The Ely case, we try to get up here at least a couple times a year. It's been, I'd say about 6 months or so since we were in Ely. But we were up here, last time we were up here, we were doing some ghost hunting, but for the Ely case, it's been about 2 years, I'd say.
That's right, last time they were up here, they're like, hey, Mustang, we're here! And I was like, man, I just can't right now, I just can't, you know. And it was kind of like it just out of nowhere you guys were up here. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I tell my wife, hey, I'm gonna go out looking for some weird stuff, man, I'll be back later. You know?
Yeah.
I remember we're hanging out in your basement.
Now, tell me about, now I've been through Santa Claus, Arizona. It is creepy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's very...
Even from the highway, you drive through, you don't want to stop here. You know, just keep going, just keep going. Just
Yeah.
keep going. So I don't know, why did they name it Santa Claus?
It was actually a Christmas-themed amusement park. I guess an attraction, an amusement park, however you want to word that. They had like a Christmas themed hotel. They had little rides, like they had a train.
They put ornaments on a cactus or what? You know?
It was built during the 1930s, I believe.
That far back?
And they closed it in like 1992 or 1994, I believe.
Really? Now, I guess once it hits 100 degrees, you know, I mean, it kind of takes away the rain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Santa Claus is coming out in his birthday suit.
Yeah.
Too hot for me. Oh, nothing. So now, let's talk about what you guys are up here for. Let's talk about this Ely crash case.
Well, we've been working on this case for the past 11 years, interviewing different people, getting out in the community and collecting stories and hitting maps and looking at old documents. And it's kind of culminating this weekend where we have a suspected crash site that we're going to begin to investigate.
Well, the general story, I guess you could say, depending on who you talk to, they say it's either 1962 or 1964. And the general story is, I was told this story originally by the brakeman that was on the train this day. He said he was on a train coming towards McGill, I guess you could say.
Okay.
And they said that they came around the bend, I guess the best way to word it, they said they came around a bend and they said the tracks were destroyed up ahead. And so I guess they hit the brakes on the train, and eventually when it stopped, when they got out to see what was going on, they saw that there was some kind of a silver disc, they said. And they said there was a hole ripped in the side. And
The proverbial silver disc.
Yes. And they said that there was a hole ripped in the side and it was laying at the base of a mountain close to McGill. And I guess the story goes that the people that were on the train got off, and while they were trying to figure out what was going on, they said that some female ranchers rode up on horseback and they rode out to this crash. And supposedly there's pieces of it all over the ground, and there was even alien bodies. And from what I was told, these female ranchers picked up pieces of it and they rode away. And I guess they said that the military arrived about an hour or two later. And we actually talked to the son of one of the female ranchers, and he supposedly still has pieces of this. I haven't seen it myself, but he actually does live in this area still. Try to think what else. We talked to about 4 or 5 different people that were involved as far as civilians and dealing with the railroad. We've talked to different people in the government that supposedly handled pieces of this later on, like years later. Lots of civilians that saw the wreckage being driven through town, or they saw the road was closed out there by McGill. And just some weird stuff in general. Like I said, the alien bodies, we don't really have a whole lot of accounts of those. But I actually managed to get a hold of one of the original investigators from the 1970s. His name was Willard McIntyre. And he actually told me that they had 3 stories at the time in the 1970s from military people that supposedly were out there. He's now deceased, as far as I know. I talked to him.
I imagine most of them are. I mean,
Yeah.
just getting that point, you know, because you would figure that, you know, even with a varied age group back in the 60s,
Yeah.
you know, that early 60s, you know, they would, even if they would have been in their 20s and 30s, I mean, my God.
He born during World War II.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that's a long time ago.
So, you know, and that would seem to be, from what I've seen on, you know, on television shows and investigator things, that seems to be the problem, is trying to get people, and it's usually people that don't want to say anything until, for some strange reason, they don't want to talk about it until they're like, get ready to go. They're like, well, I'm out of here now, can't do nothing to me now, I'm going to tell you what happened, you know?
Well, what's weird is, like I said, we've been traveled to different states and things and talked to all these people. As far as I know, people have tried looking at the 1952 crash, which is out by Ruth, but they haven't really found a whole lot of evidence for that. We found tons of evidence to support the one out by McGill.
Really?
Yeah, tons of them. We've
Yeah,
talked
there's a very large catalog of evidence that we have.
at least a couple dozen witnesses. We've talked to maybe about, let's say, 5 or 6 living people that were there or had something to do with
Now,
it.
you mentioned that last time, you said you'd actually talked to people that were alive at the time you were here.
Yeah,
And that were telling you the actual story. So
yeah.
how do you, well, I should say the word is, how do you ascertain that there maybe, if they're telling you the truth, because there's a lot of people that say they've seen stuff, you know, and
Yeah.
and so you just go by the character of the person you're talking to, or based on, you know, how
Well,
they tell the story, or
The way
anything.
I do it is, of course, a lot of the first-hand witnesses aren't around anymore, so a lot of it's family members or grandchildren, things like that. But the brakeman I knew was on the train that day, because he gave me a specific mile marker,
Right.
and he gave me the story about the female ranchers, He gave me the story of, like I said, that he was on the train. So I took that story as like our primary story. This was probably around 2008, 2010. Then we had an old lady called us and said, well, a UFO never crashed out near near McGill, but a satellite did crash out there in the 1960s. And she gave us a specific landmark to look for. And
they said it was a satellite.
that's what this woman said. And the woman's story matched up with the story that the guy on the train gave us.
Okay.
Well, I was featured in the Ely Times as like one of their stories a couple years ago. And that's when the individual whose mom was one of the female he told me his mom was a rancher, and she had rode up on horseback and picked up pieces of this UFO. And his story, of course, matched up with the satellite story, which in the same general area. And there's a mile marker, a specific mile marker that was used for the railroad. And that mile marker matches up with where the guy said his mom was a rancher and picked up pieces. The satellite was close to there. We talked to people that said that the roads were blocked off, the service roads going down the railroad tracks in a certain area. And we talked to individuals who said they worked for the railroad and that specific portion was blocked off, and they named a specific area. So it's kind of, the majority of the stories kind of fit together just by chance.
Right. The puzzles are kind of going together,
Yeah.
but it's still not complete.
It's not complete, but I think, as far as I know, we've talked to about as many people as we're going to talk to that are going to come forward with the story.
So I guess the next thing I would ask you is, so what would be the next step to get some hard evidence or something, right?
Well, this weekend we have a metal detector, a Geiger counter, and electromagnetic EMF reader. And we're going to go to the site and we're going to see if there's any interesting readings that we can see, anything that differentiates it from the surrounding area.
Right, something that stands out.
Yeah.
So now, I mean, you were telling me earlier that when we talked on the phone about a week ago, you were saying that now, since you've been investigating, because you guys have been doing this for a little while on this particular case.
Yeah. About 10 years roughly.
So you told me that you actually got some pressure, or some people were actually, you know, I won't say threaten you, but I mean you were being intimidated in some way.
We've actually talked to, out of the witnesses, we periodically do find people who were interrogated by military police, or what they consider the men in black. And we've talked to people specifically, there's a guy that lived over in Ruth that supposedly had something to do with the crash. And I don't know, Nick, you want to talk about it real quick?
Yeah, there was a witness who was a little boy when this event happened, and we called him on the phone, and at first he was very courteous, very friendly to us. But then we began to inquire about this UFO crash, and all of a sudden he started to stammer and cry. And he said, they told me not to talk about it. Click. And he hung up on us.
Really?
Yeah.
I bet that made the hair stand up on the back.
There was
Just a little bit.
There was a county commissioner for White Pine County I talked to, and he actually was working for the railroad in the past during that point in time.
Okay.
And I was talking to him, and he was trying to brush me off, saying he didn't believe the story, nothing happened. And in the middle of me talking to him, as he was telling me off, I kind of put the phone away from my face. And I was talking to Nick, and I said, well, as far as I know, he said that no little green men were ever out near McGill. And then he gets on the phone again, and he stops arguing with me, and then he says they weren't green, they were brown. And then he says, okay, well, I've said about as much as I can't talk to you anymore. He said,
all of a sudden, once again, bells started going off
Yeah.
and everything else.
and I myself was actually contacted, like I said, we live in Las Vegas, so I used to work at a casino, and when I came home from work, I worked the graveyard shift. And I pulled into our driveway, and I was going to go in the house and ask my brother if he wanted to go to the grocery store, I think it was. So I opened the door, and I just stepped out of the car, like I was still sitting, but my legs were hanging out of the car. All of a sudden, a white van with blacked out windows comes tearing around the corner, because we live on a corner, and it blocks me almost like a T, like a T-bone shape.
So it blocked you from like you
Blocked me,
out of your
yeah,
life.
so I couldn't get, and a guy gets out, and he's in a military fatigue. And all of a sudden, the guy gets out, and he says, so I heard that, because I was on the Art Bell show around that time.
Right.
He goes, so I heard that you were on the Art Bell show, Jeremy. And I go, yeah. And he goes, so tell your friend Nick that I said hi. And then Nick.
Maybe he was just a friend of Nick's. You know?
Well,
Oh, yeah.
well, so then he starts telling me, so tell me about the UFO crash. He wasn't talking about the 1960s thing, he was talking about the other one. But he says, yeah, so tell me about the UFO crash. And I kind of got quiet there for a
I would have
second.
said, first thing I would have said, wait a minute, are you a producer?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he starts telling me, he's like, well, you might want to stop researching this because at the time Nick was trying to get into the military around this time. And he goes, you better stop researching this, or I'll find a way to make sure that you don't finish your college and Nick won't get into the military.
Really? This is what he said?
Yeah.
Huh?
And then
So
again,
he actually did threaten you?
yeah, he did.
He
And-
did.
I remember when he
and-
called me about the story, he was really, really
Yeah.
scared.
And then he said, well, tell your friend Nick I said hi. And after, like I said, we talked for about, maybe 2 or 3 minute
Did
conversation.
you ask him to ID himself? Did he?
I didn't ask him that, but he got in his van and started driving away the way he came. And when he started driving away, I took his picture on my phone of the van. And it said, what it said, U.S. government official use only, in silver letters on the white license plate. And I remember he drove away, and I was freaked out, so I got in the car and ended up going to the grocery store a few minutes later. Well, when I pulled out of the driveway, and we have to go through about 3 or 4 stop signs to get to the driveway, that van pulled around and followed me all the way to the grocery store. And
Well, maybe he was just out of cheese puffs. You know?
yeah. So he followed me all the way to the grocery store, like tailgating me, and I pulled over in one of the handicap spots in front of the grocery store because I thought something bad's gonna happen, like your hair started standing up. And all of a sudden when I parked, he kept on going. But that was, I'd say, around 2012 or so. And I've seen the vans outside our house on 2 or 3 occasions since. But I haven't seen them for about 2 or 3 years as of right now.
And you still have the actual picture.
Yeah, I still have the picture, and it seems like every time I do an interview, we always get a call within the next few days from Hill Air Force Base or Nellis Air Force Base. Starts calling our phones.
Well, we're pretty close to Hill. You know?
Yeah.
We're actually kind of right in the middle, so maybe you'll get from both, you know?
Yeah.
Remember you were telling me about this. The first thing my reaction was is that I would think that'd be kind of stupid. Because the minute you show up, you know, and you obviously give the impression to somebody that you're connected to the federal government and either DOD or something,
Yeah.
you know, first thing people are going to go is, maybe I'm on to something here, you know, because
Right.
because obviously, why else would they show up? If, you know, I mean, if you're going to intimidate somebody, you know, I mean, let's get it on, you know.
Well,
Right.
one of the weirdest stories I ever heard was me and Nick were supposed to come up here by ourselves. This was like around 2012 again. And we were supposed to meet up with a woman, I think it was a Thursday. Well, she calls me around Monday or Tuesday and says, well, your guys' interview was great. She's like, I'd like to thank Nick and Jeremy for coming out. And we got this phone call, it was a voicemail. And I called her back, and I was like, we never came out there. We were supposed to be out there on like 2 or 3 days
So
from
now
now.
you freaked her out.
And she's like, well, whoever called her, they knew all about like our school, they knew our families, they knew the cars we drove and everything. And she described these 2 guys. I was like, oh, well, that's not us. I don't know who that was, but
Well, they were wearing black suits and dark sunglasses. That would have been ridiculous.
well, what was weird was a couple of days before that, I got a call from Hill Air Force Base. And the guy asked me a bunch of questions about my personal life as far as where I went to school and what car we drove. And those are the same details that woman said that they told her when they came to interview her. And it scared the woman so bad, I haven't heard from her since. And we tried to contact her like 10 times.
I just kind of wish that they would show up, you know, especially with all my military background. I'd be like, okay, you know what? First of all, you have to have an ID. You don't have an ID, I don't even know who you are, you know?
Yeah.
Show me your ID. Well, obviously they show you the ID. Of course, it could be a bogus ID, you know?
Yeah.
It was
But,
gonna be
I mean,
something though.
Yeah, something, you know, I mean, and what kind of band, was it like a new band? I mean, was it, because it was a cheesy old band, oh, who knows, it could have been a maintenance guy from
It looked like
you know?
it looked like one of those, I'm trying to think, it's like a Mercedes, like a big tall van where you could stand up in it, like a cargo van.
Really?
It was, yeah, it looked like a big, that's one of my words, like one of those cargo vans. Looked like Mercedes makes them, I know. I don't know who else makes them. It's like a big square one, no windows on the side, just the front and the back.
Still, I probably would check that out, you know, say, first of all, you can Google that, does GSA, does
Go to the pictures on the website.
Yeah.
Mercedes Benz? No, they do not. Well,
So-
now what's going on?
I don't know what was going on, but I know the military obviously doesn't want us to be talking about it, whatever it is. And in the 1970s, the military was interrogating people in Ruth. They were going door to door. I know that they were in Duckwater for sure. I don't know about McGill or Ely, but I do have reports from Ruth and from Duckwater of the military police talking to people.
And you were saying that they said there was witnesses said they saw a huge item on a flatbed that went through the Duckwater area?
In the 1950s crash.
Okay.
Most of our reports come from in the middle of the night. They thought a small plane had crashed in the mine up there. And I guess there was a crowd started gathering on the Ruth side of the mine. And they said that the sheriff started blocking off the entrance to the mine. And they said supposedly the military came from Hill Air Force Base through the back entrance of the mine. They loaded the UFO on the back of a flatbed and drove it out towards Duckwater. And a lot of the people out in Duckwater saw this UFO or pieces of it on the back of a flatbed, and they were driving through town going really fast. I guess they were driving dangerous and like screeching their tires and things, trying to get out before the sun came up.
Really? So
Yeah,
they were flat moving.
Yeah, they were going quick, and I guess I don't know if they didn't want people. I'm guessing they were going fast, obviously, because the crowd started gathering, and they didn't want people to see it, and they were trying to get it to one of the military bases before the sun came up.
So now on this weekend you're up here. So
Yeah.
you're going to be just focusing on
The 1960s train stories is why we're here this weekend.
All right. Now, because I don't want to get too far into the time, but so now what else have you guys?
Here's the actual
Oh, yeah.
picture of the men in black.
They actually have the picture of the van. I want to see what it is.
As it was driving away.
Yeah, you know what? I have seen GSA vans that look like that. And it's a typical GSA van, blah,
I thought there was a guy who was going to turn around and yell
What's
at
the
me.
pizza box on the ground out down?
I thought he was going to turn around and say, "Why you take my picture?" or something when I took the picture.
Now, you were telling me that other people you've interviewed have had visits
Yes.
from government agencies or somebody.
Yeah.
Right? So, did they ever identify themselves as government agents, or was it just somebody just knocking on the door?
It's normally they show up all of a sudden, like kind of like they did to me. They'll show up all of a sudden, unannounced, and then they'll either try to scare them, or they'll threaten them, or just start asking weird questions about like making it sound like they're gonna be harmed or something bad's gonna happen to them.
So that's a lot of information to take in for some, especially people up here.
Yeah,
right.
And I'll say one thing about the folks up here: they don't like to be threatened.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think these guys would be smart if they went out to one of these ranches. Because every one of these ranchers out here has got something close by.
Oh,
Yeah.
definitely.
Or their cutting dogs are pretty good too.
Right.
But so now, because we're running, I don't want to get too far. Like I said, we're actually doing pretty quick. I mean, it's gone quick.
Yeah.
So now, you were telling me that there's a. Why don't you go ahead and tell me about who you guys got to have an interview with later on today over the phone?
At 4 o'clock today, we're supposed to speak with a production company. They want to film a TV show with us.
Well, maybe not now. This show's being monitored.
Well, the
You might
show.
have just flushed that one down. But then again, on the other side, production company might go, "Oh, hey, these guys are onto something."
Oh yeah. Well, the show. From what they told me, it's a paranormal investigating show, but treasure hunting will be included on the show.
Really? So that too.
Because we do treasure hunting also. We do treasure hunting. We do like the ghosts.
Okay, my next
and-
question is: have you found any treasure?
We haven't found any yet.
Of course, you wouldn't be here if you did.
Yeah. But
Remember
so
those guys that are living down in Jamaica? Yeah. They found it finally.
well, we're supposed to talk at 4 o'clock today. We're talking to the executives, and they said it's a year and a half. It's a year and a half long deal. And if they decide to go through with it, they said that they would film us going on our adventures. Supposedly, according to them, it's undoctored, trying to think of other unfiltered. Like it's not like other TV shows where they have like screams and doors slamming in the background.
Right.
Yeah, it's nothing like that.
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah. So we're talking to them at 4, but I don't know if they're interested in the Ely incident. But we're filming our own private documentary this weekend. And we're going to use footage that we use over the past 10 years, of course, and put that on there too.
Now, tell me you said earlier about this lake monster. Where was that at?
We've done different ones. The main one we did was at Walker Lake
Okay.
over in Nevada.
I've heard stories about Walker Lake.
In the 1800s, the story goes back to Native Americans were saying that they would put their dead out there on rafts, and there was a creature that would either consume the dead bodies, I guess. It said it's a long snake-like creature. But I know within the last few years or so, they said the lake started getting dangerous levels for creatures that would live in there.
Right.
And they were saying the oxygen levels weren't good enough to support life.
Right.
But I know at least up until the 1960s or 70s, people were reporting it.
No kidding, huh?
And we went out there with different types of cameras, and we interviewed different people. And I know, like I said, most of our stories are from like the 1970s and before. But it was reported in different newspapers around the state, going out to like Virginia City, Carson City, Elko even had some stories on it.
Right. So now, you guys have your own website. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the website? So if somebody wants to go and check it out.
You want to do it, Nick?
Come on, Nick, go ahead.
Yes, we have a website, Facebook, and a Twitter, and a YouTube. The website is Bigfootspad.com, BIGFOOTSPAD.com, and that has links to everything that we have. It's got pictures, EVPs, video, every kind of multimedia that we have collected throughout the 15 years that we've been doing the paranormal is on that website.
There's also links on that website to our YouTube, which has some stuff that's not on our website, but you could get to all of our other Facebook and all that off our main website.
You were telling me about you were on with Art Bell.
Yeah.
So Tommy, can you tell me a little bit about this before you came on? So what was that experience?
I'm disappointed in Art Bell, to tell you the truth. I really looked up to the guy for about 10 years before that. I grew up listening to him since from a little kid till now. I went on this show, and I guess the best way to word it is, first, he claims he didn't know that I was using a cell phone. And when I called into the show, he got really mad first that I was using a cell phone. Then, he didn't go in chronological order when he was asking me questions about the UFO crashes. So I think it kind of confused his listeners. And finally, he started getting mad at the cell phone thing, like I said. So later on in the interview, I guess he told me, okay, well, why don't you come down here to the studio and we'll talk in person? And he kind of called my bluff, and I said, all right, I'll go out there. Your studio's only about an hour away from my house.
Right.
And then he said, okay, well, we'll go on a commercial break, and he just hung up. And he hung up on me. Well, apparently when he went back on the air, he started telling everyone that I was unprofessional. I hung up on him. He was telling everyone that he was going to get a real UFO investigator to research the case. Basically, he started kind of making me look bad, and it was one of the worst interviews I ever did, to tell you the truth.
Yeah,
I really wish I never did that one.
You're all
But
stoked to give out all this information,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden somebody's just trying to throw water on your fire.
yeah, and then it's like ever since when you search the UFO crash, that's the very first interview that comes up is the Art Bell show.
Right, yeah,
And-
I've seen your name
Yeah,
up there.
and for some reason they have my interview, but they have Nick's picture on there.
Yeah, they have a picture of me.
Yeah,
so
I don't understand.
People think
Nick only has to do
me.
half the work, you know?
Yeah.
This is me, but not really me, but my pictures.
I was thinking, good, that's great. If they don't like me, at least they think I look like Nick. So at least they don't like Nick.
Yeah, they won't like me.
Said, I don't know if we should get too pushy with this guy. So now, you're, after this, so let's just say that this production company,
Yeah.
decides to pick you guys up for a series. So what big investigations have you had besides this one lined up? I mean, have you guys done any research and like a backup? Okay, this is going to be the big one.
You mean ones in the future, or you mean
Right.
ones we've done in the past?
Well, the ones you guys are planning on doing.
You want to talk about that, Nick?
Yeah, we're planning a number of different investigations. There's actually a crash that happened out near Elko.
Really?
Yes.
What is
1970.
it with this part of the state all of a sudden,
Right.
I don't know, but there's one from
Pretty soon it's going to be a UFO no-fly zone.
yeah. There's one from, like I said, 1950s by Ruth. There's 1962 or 64 by McGill. And then 1972 supposedly out near Elko. And we're sorry, I'm getting tongue-tied. We're also trying to film a Bigfoot documentary out near Sacramento.
Now, I'm going to tell you this because I talked to a person on the phone, which will remain nameless, because I asked him to listen today. But he was in an area not very far from here, not very far at all. And this was, the way, if I remember right, it's been 3, 4, 5 years, I think. But he does a lot of, he's up in the mountains a lot, hunting and everything else. And he was with some guys, and they were in a spotting scope, and they saw something that he told me on the phone. He said, "Steve, I got to tell you, it looked like a freaking Bigfoot. I mean, it was black, and this area of the state is not known for black bears or anything. Not to say that it couldn't have been,
Yeah.
Right.
but just the way that this thing was on a rock slide, and they were watching it, and it was pretty distinct as far as what it was doing. And at first it wouldn't move, And then finally it moved, and they were all freaked out after that, you know. But it was so
Yeah.
far away, it wasn't like, dude, run, you know.
Yeah.
So, but he, you know, he like a lot of other people. They don't sit there and tell everybody in town, you know, I saw Bigfoot, you know, because
Yeah.
that just don't roll very well, you know.
Well, our group, we kind of specialize, like the way I work, we don't go to the popular places you see on TV or like you see on the internet. We try to go for either remote, remote over the top activity, or just in general hard to get to.
Yeah, we don't. We like to go to places that other people have.
Or unknown, I guess, like places that people haven't really looked at before.
We don't just pull up on the side of the road and go to some place. We usually drive 30 miles down a dirt road, then hike 10 miles to get
Like
to
for
the
instance, yeah, like for instance, the Goldfield Hotel is cool and all, and they do get some good activity out of there. But because it's so popular and everyone and their brother goes there, we'll just kind of stay away from that.
Yeah, because the last thing you want to do is just stand in line to do an investigation.
Yeah.
All right, number 47,
Yeah.
Bigfoot Pad Paranormal. Are you guys still here? Please hold up your number. Yeah, that
Yeah.
would suck, you know. Besides, area up here, you know, this is a great area.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
It's
there's
crazy.
there's towns. I've been out in my Razor and up in the mountains, and you drive over a mountainside and you come down the other side in these thick trees. Whoosh, all of a sudden, there's an old mining town. I mean, and
Yeah.
it doesn't look like anybody's been there
Well,
forever, you know.
We did a ghost hunt over at the White Pine Public Museum a few years ago, and we caught some cool stuff. That's on our YouTube also.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, that's cool. Uh-oh, just come over.
No, I just got an email, so I'm just showing it to you, so if you
Wait a
want to
minute.
read it.
It's, this individual, we won't mention names because it's a small town.
Mm-hmm.
But this individual just texted Jody and said, UFO crash near Route 1952, 18 bodies recovered and sent to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base.
That's what comes up on the internet before we got involved in it.
Right.
And now we have like a big long version of the story. We put all these pieces together. But that's what comes up on the internet. That's the original story that Willard McIntyre collected from the 1970s. And
Well-
most of that came from the Duckwater.
Now, I know a lot of people, you know, they get on the internet and stuff, but I don't think there's a lot of people in this immediate area that have probably even punched that up. But
Yeah.
if they do, if they just punch in UFO crash site, Ely, Nevada, the hits just go all the way down the page. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
when I first time I looked at it, I think it was after I talked to you guys.
Yeah.
I was on there going, wow, man, I mean, something must have went down. Even if
Right.
it was a satellite or something, something happened.
Well, historically, White Pine County, I don't know if people know this, is one of the biggest UFO hotspots in the country.
No, I don't think anybody knew that.
Major's Place has lots of sightings. Baker is a hotspot. There's stories from lights coming down the mountain in Baker. There's one story I collected where these two guys were out camping out there, and they were watching lights come through the woods. Well, this ball, I guess they said it was like a floating orb, came through the woods and shined a bright beam of light at them, and it scared them. They left their tent and everything. They jumped in the truck, and they were going over 100 miles an hour driving back to Ely.
I know that story. Matter of fact,
Yeah.
we had some people in here a couple of years ago that are from that town.
Yeah.
And they talked to one of those guys, and he was legitimately freaked out.
Yes.
I mean, and these were hunters. These weren't, you know, these weren't just
Right.
like, you know, some guys from Vegas, you know, who maybe stopped at the, you know, the local, you know,
Yeah.
shop, you know,
Right.
and said, oh wow, no, these guys were just regular old guys, and
Yeah,
it just
yeah.
freaked them out.
Like you said, it's another one of those cases where everything just kind of falls together.
Yeah.
And there's stories about lights over on Duck Creek Valley. There's lots of stories of lights coming over the farms and the houses out there, flying low.
I think if you talk to people around here off to the side, you know, not like at Ridley's or anything.
Yeah.
Right.
Don't talk to them in the frozen food aisle, you know.
Yeah.
But if you talk to some of these people, you'll see that there's stuff that happens, you know. And just like they've always said, if you really want to see something, look up once in a while. You know?
Well,
Yes.
we're always collecting stories, whether it's the crashes or just general lights in the sky, whatever. We have tons of stories about lights in the sky and things like that too. We were actually thinking of somehow including some of those stories on our documentary.
Well, that would be good. I mean, now, because I think we're down, I've been going at this for like, it seemed like we just started, and all of a sudden, 11
Yeah.
o'clock, you know. Okay, so now, let's say someone wants to get a hold of you.
Yes.
All right, someone's got some information, maybe photos, maybe something, you know.
Yes.
How would they get a hold of you?
The best way to get a hold of us would be bigfootspad.com. We have like a little section on our website where you click it and it has like an email, or it has like
And you
a
guys got
little...
one of your cards you brought up with you, right?
We should.
In the car.
In the car, yeah.
We'll leave one of those and we'll put it on our Facebook page.
Yep,
For sure.
bigfootspad.com or bigfootspad@yahoo.com.
All right, okay, so there you go, 3 guys that are up here, been doing some research for quite a while, and Wouldn't it be something? Wouldn't it be something if we smoked Roswell, you know?
Oh,
Yeah, that
absolutely.
would be amazing.
I mean, you guys would be like the, you know, the grand poobahs of the parade,
Right.
you know, because the tourism would go crazy.
Well, the site that we found is really promising. That's the only thing.
Well, we don't want to talk about
Yeah.
where it's at. We don't want to, because that's
Right.
up to you guys.
It's all the pieces fit together, and it's really promising. Put it that way.
So now, you guys are up here for the. Where do you go after this? What's next?
I would say after this weekend, what we're going to do is next weekend we're actually looking at going out to a place called Fort Pierce. It's like a prairie fort out by St. George.
Really?
Yeah, and it's one of the last. There's only 3 forts left from the Black Hawk Wars in Utah with the Indians, and we're going to go out there next weekend.
Okay. All right. So I say Tim, Jeremy, Nick. I'm glad you guys came in.
Absolutely.
Thanks
Always
for
a
having us.
pleasure.
Bigfoot
Yeah,
Pad Paranormal. You got it. We'll have a card for you guys if you guys are interested. You got some information. Maybe someone knows. Maybe it's related to somebody that was here back then.
We're also looking for ghost stories and ghost hunting locations all the time in White Pine County.
Well, there's a lot of that.
Yeah.
I got 3 or 4 houses on my street. Oh, that's right. You're looking at one of them.
Right?
Yeah.
It'd be good to move into your own haunted house.
Yeah.
I don't even have to leave the house. I just sit here and just take pictures with my camera, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, then you guys could swap stories 24/7.
Yeah, I'd be like, okay, here comes Jerry. This time he's really pale. He must have got something good.
He's not just borrowing sugar.
You know what I mean? I'm the bad guy. I would be the one coming over in your window, you know, with some gray stuff.
Well, me and Nick are both
Knock
looking
it
at.
off, Mustang. I'm trying to sleep.
Yeah, me and Nick are both looking at moving up here within the next 6 months or so.
I'll tell you what, there's this town's starting to pick it up a little bit, you know, and there, of course, everywhere's picking up. But I mean, up here, there. If you know where to go, there's plenty of places to see, and no matter what you're doing, I mean, White Pine has got just thousands of
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
areas to go to, you know.
I feel like Vegas is getting way too overcrowded.
It already is overcrowded.
Yeah, it's getting really expensive too.
It was overcrowded back in the 80s. Man,
Yeah.
you know. But well, I appreciate you guys coming up.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
And there you go. If you guys are into something like that and you got information, even a story you remember someone telling you or you saw yourself, get a hold of these guys and let them know what's going on because this is what they do. They like this kind of stuff. And we're going to get back into some music.